PGA Championship week on Find the Fairway Live. Who are you betting on this week to make you money at Oak Hill? We know who the favorites are. Scotty Scheffler and Jon Rahm, always massive favorites. And Rory McIlroy's numbers finally starting to go down a little bit. Will Rory be a contender this week at the PGA Championship? James Nitties, PGA Tour Live. I found him. You've been all over the place. I'm so glad to have you here live on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube right now, man.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. It's an exciting week. PGA Championship at a brutally tough golf course, and I love our chats. I love coming on here and just seeing what we can shake out.
Let's start here with the brutally difficult golf course. Do you see it that way? So much talk about Oak Hill being nothing like it was when Sean McKeel won and when Jason Duffner won and more US Open like. How true is that though, do you think?
I think it's very true. The new redesign that was done was trying to get back to what it was and what its character was back in the early days, and
Yeah.
and the comps of the course have been Torrey Pines. We've seen Brookline. These are all Kiowa. So it for me, it has a US Open feel to it, and I've got a buddy out there actually playing JJ Colleen. He's a West Texas driving range pro, very hilarious on Twitter. He said that he might need to maybe venture over to the Red Cross tent and get some medical attention because he said that a short hitting scratch golfer would likely not break 100 around Oak Hill. And what he actually said, his
Really?
course design, his course kind of feel as he was walking the practice round yesterday was there's firm fairways, narrow, sloped. So that means not only is it narrow, that the edges of the fairways kind of run away. And at the moment, it's very, very firm. They've predicted rain on Saturday, but right now it's firm. So it's very hard to you need to really land it in the middle of the fairway to hold the fairway. He also said the greens are crazy firm with tough surroundings, a lot of runoffs, tight chipping areas. And also the bunkers are true hazards this week, considering that a lot of the bunkers from around about 200 yards from the green, you're going to be hitting out sideways. So I think it's just brutal all around. I'm here for it. They predict that they want the target score to be around 10 to 12 under. I think it's going to be more from 4 to 8 under.
Really?
Obviously the weather could play a part in that, but I think it's just going to feel like a true major this week.
So that means a handful of names come to mind on who kind of tailors their game towards that. And we'll get to picks and predictions here in a minute. What I want to do is because I feel like typically on major championship weeks, maybe a little bit differently from regular PGA Tour events, we tend to focus on three traditional topics. And so, what I want to do is just kind of get a mental exercise going on here for you, for me, for everybody out there on what are the key metrics that we use and how we combine all of them together to make picks. Because if you take all three of these that we're about to go through, they're all vastly different. And players, we're going to go head to head with a couple of guys in specific, might be really good in one area and really bad in the other. And then you've got your own mental perception on them, and it changes everything. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with two guys who I think could really do well this week, but don't know if I want to pick them because Tyrrell Hatton and Tommy Fleetwood, neither has ever won a major championship. Tommy Fleetwood's still looking for his first ever PGA championship, PGA event win. So we're going to go through three categories here, James. The first category, shots gained this season. Tyrrell Hatton's killing it. I mean, off the tee, they're saying you got to hit it far and you got to hit it straight. He looks good to me on paper this week, shots gained. What do you think?
I think that's a great stat. Hatton sneaky long off the tee, and he hits it quite a ways on firm fairways. So there's that weather issue. Do the fairways soft up a little bit, but hits it long and then very accurate. He's picked up like 75 positions in strokes gained accuracy since last season. So that's a good stat. I like that one. It's something to look at. It's not like Fleetwood's short. He's pretty
Right.
accurate, but he still doesn't have the power that Hatton has. The approach is another one we talked about here with Oak Hill. Everyone's talking about if you talk to any betting expert or any data expert, It's all about approach to the green this week. I think 55% of the shots from the fairway are going to be hit from that 175 to 200 yard mark. So it's something to look at. I don't have the trusty computer in front of me, and sometimes I'll wing it when it comes to betting. But those two right there, I think, with Hatton beating Fleetwood, very very important.
You would assume right now, just looking at shots gained, that Hatton would have a little bit of an edge on Tommy Fleetwood. So here's where it gets confusing and where it gets really scary because Tyrrell Hatton at major championships has not been good, especially lately. He's been nowhere to be found. His only major top five, James, I had to go back about 8 or 9 years at the Open Championship. His only top five. None at the Masters, none at the firm and fast US Open, and some of these PGAs have been the same way as well. Fleetwood's been the opposite. No, he hasn't won. No, he hasn't done well on Sunday when he's been in contention. But the fact that the guy has been there, you could go one or two ways with Tommy Fleetwood. You could say he's been there, he's had chances, he's learned his lessons, he's learned how to range in his emotions. He's going to do it one day. Or you could say the other thing the guy just doesn't have it. The guy knows mentally he can't get there and he crumbles when it matters most. So you look at shots gained, you're at Tyrrell Hatton. You look at top fives and majors, it's Tommy Fleetwood. So you see what I'm saying here? Balancing those two and figuring out who would be the better play here.
Uh, yeah, this is where the stats kind of get a little bit murky. I feel like a couple of these kind of finishes from Fleetwood were backdoor finishes.
Yeah, you're right about
So
that.
I'd love to see a stat after where these two were situated on the Saturday night going into the final round. I'd much rather have the guy like Hatton that is in contention and crumbles a little bit. We know how he can get fiery as a fantastic, fun
Right.
personality to follow. And Fleetwood shot a lot of scores in the 60s on Sunday to put himself into a backdoor top five finish in majors.
Yeah.
But he's also playing well. His form's pretty good this year. I Hatton, look, he's won the Arnold Palmer Invitational. He played well there this year, which is almost feels like a major. It's one of the events on the PGA Tour where the course plays so difficult that the winning score is rarely above 6, 7 under par. So Hatton always plays well there. I think with the tools that he's kind of refined this year, maybe we'll put him in better stead when it comes to not only the majors in general, but this week. So, but hey, that's what you're here for to test me out a little bit because there's a good little graphic to show that the past and then what could happen this week.
When you brought up this year, you brought up the API, and this kind of furthers the point of, to me, Tyrrell Hatton, just if he can get out of his own anger mental space where he just gets so flustered with a couple of shots and a couple of holes get away from him and he's toast. If he gets away from that, I've been saying for a long time, this guy has it. If he can just get across that threshold and figure out a way to win, he has all those tools. This year in specific, he has done, I think, a lot better than people realize he has. For somebody who hasn't won yet in 2023 on the PGA Tour, he is as good as anybody out there when you're talking about who you would want to pick, who you don't think is necessarily already a star, who everyone's going to pick.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold that against Hatton this season. We've seen just the dominance from Rahm. A lot of the better players emerging. Scheffler, McIlroy's been a little slow this year, but you've just kind of seen these guys when Rahm gets hot, when Scheffler gets hot. It's just hard to win on the PGA Tour in general.
Right.
And Hatton to have those opportunities. Look, we all like you just said, he gets very fiery. I love watching him play just because of his personality. He said himself he loves to get angry on the course, but I wouldn't say he loves to, but he goes I know I get angry, but it's a good way of me venting, and it never affects my next shot. Now, one of the best of all time, I think, is the GOAT, and the second most major winner, Tiger Woods. He was the most fined on the PGA Tour for kind of doing what Hatton does. He lost his temper a lot, threw
Yeah,
clubs,
good point.
swore, did everything, but he was the best. He had the best bounce back stat on the PGA Tour. So, if you can vent and, maybe throw a club, don't snap it because you're going to need it. but then just put it behind you, as Hatton said he does. Hopefully, it doesn't affect him. But yeah, this graphic. Look, he's on. He's played great this year. He's been close a lot, and he's been close a lot at tough, difficult golf courses. So, look, if you were to Fleetwood's been better of late. A lot of this work from Hatton was done closer to the front of the season and middle of the
Mm,
season,
yeah,
and Fleetwood's been a bit better of late. So once again, you've killed it here with this good graphic. So it's a very difficult one, but I still give Hatton the edge.
I agree. I think just the fact that he really hasn't, just because he hasn't had top fives in majors doesn't mean he can't do it. There's something about Tommy Fleetwood where I feel like because he's been there and it hasn't happened, that something's just missing. Tyrrell Hatton hasn't been in that situation to see what he does when he has a lead on Sunday, or see if he's chasing on the back nine on Sunday, and how things develop for him. We haven't seen it yet. We don't have that sample size yet. For we have it for Tommy Fleetwood. That's why I think with Fleetwood, it's just a kind of a steer clear. I think the guy can get a top 10. I mean, if you want to pick Tommy Fleetwood in a fantasy, or you want him to get you some points, making a top 10, maybe even a top five, like I don't think he's a bad pick at all.
No, look, Fleetwood's great. He's got a lot of great tools and knows how to contend, knows how to go low at tough courses. But once again, he seems to do it on the final day when he's a little bit before when he's a little bit out of contention. I feel like Hatton's got the better tools right now, long, straight. Both these guys play good in the wind. We're expecting a little bit of wind Friday, Saturday, Sunday out at Oak Hill. Also, tee times are going to come into a little bit of a factor here. I would like to see late early. So the tee times are obviously going to come out today. Which one of these two is going to get the late? Which are they both going to get early first round or late first round? Because the weather's going to be a little colder the first round, a little warmer the second round. So obviously you would love to be off late in the first round when it's chilly in the afternoon and not have to play in the morning when it's really cold. But it's just both good win players. Both do everything pretty well, very consistent. But yeah, it's just that you have the explosiveness of Hatton and the fire, and you have the slow start, if you would say, from Fleetwood. Never really gets himself right in contention going into the weekend. He always kind of works his way slow.
Late early would also tend to be guys on Friday not dealing with that wind that they're supposed to have on Friday. Okay, one more comparison, and I think this is the best one to do because these guys are basically the same person. It may be just mitosis, you might as well call it, with Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, because these two guys are basically mirrors of each other in some ways, but polar opposites in others. So same exact exercise as we did with Fleetwood and Hatton. We're going to start with shots gained on the year. You would think that Patrick Cantlay's shots gained would be better than they are, but they're not terrible. And let me preface this. I'm not going with shots gained total and shots gained tee to green. And you tell me if you disagree with this, because I feel like, because Patrick Cantlay's top 10 in both of those easily, total and tee to green. He's so solidly average approaching around the green and putting that his averages in total and tee to green are way up there. I don't think that's the way to look at it. I don't think looking at shots gained total is the way to look at this, because you're talking about averages. And when guys are going at major championship, nothing average ever happens, James. You kind of see what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, it's hard to put a blanket of strokes gained over the whole season, and when these outliers, especially this week, it's such a difficult golf course. Once again, like I said before, it feels like more of a U.S. Open. The PGA of America do a great job selecting the courses to make these events be so entertaining. The PGA Championship doesn't get a good rap, but it seems year in, year out, we have the best players at the top at the toughest golf courses, and these two guys are almost built to play major championships. But I like what you said there, because if you hit it in the rough this week, it's almost unplayable. So it's an outlier where Schauffele 68th off the tee, but fifth in approach.
Yeah.
If you're 68th off the tee, you're not
You're
hitting as
fine.
many fairways as Cantlay is. but you're also great from approach to the green. So does that mean that he plays well at a lot of tournaments that are difficult golf courses that have no, maybe no rough, kind of like an Augusta where you can hit a lot of shots from the rough and still find the green if you hit a fantastic shot. It's not going to happen this week, especially like what I said before, finding the bunkers off the tee and the rough off the tee. You're going to do well just to get it to the green. So is that something you look at where, Cantley's going to be playing from the fairway a little bit more off the tee, with his, we'd have to really crunch the accuracies, but just like you said, it's like only off the tee, if you're picking up, usually accuracy comes into play here. But then Cantley with approach to the green, 43rd. Now at Oak Hill, some of the smallest greens on the PGA Tour, some of the spot like they're the fourth smallest. So if you find a lot of greens in regulation, your proximity is going to be closer and your approach number is going to be better, obviously. Now, you still have to find the greens. As I said before, missing greens here is very, very tricky around. There's a lot of runoffs. It's almost like trying to land it on the top of a roof of a car, because if you can, there's a couple of holes out at Oak Hill that you can go pretty much from one side to the other very easily off the green from one side to the other. So now we're looking at the around the green statistic here. It's a little 30th and 86. If you really crunch those numbers, it's going to be closer than it looks, where, not as drastic in percentage wise as it does on this graphic. But does that mean Schauffele's better when they're missed greens? There's going to be a lot of missed greens this week. They talk about approach to the green being that number one statistic, but I'm going to look at scrambling. I want to look at guys, how good they are from around these greens, because they're so firm, so tight. We get a bit of rain, and those firm, tight lies become kind of wet, very tough. You're going to need to use the leading edge. Guys like Scotty Scheffler are going to dominate with sort of shots like that if the weather gets difficult and guys aren't hitting a lot of greens also.
One thing I want to comment before I go to the next slide about this is, and you kind of touched on it, being 68th off the tee really isn't that demoralizing when it comes to how many shots are you losing from Cantlay if you're Schauffele. I mean, 68th off the tee is probably like what, half a shot worse than third? It really isn't that bad. I mean, if you're not 150th or 200th in some of these categories, that's the red flag. Is if you're way off there past 120, 150, being 68th and comparing that to a guy in the top five really isn't that much of a difference.
Yes, look, everyone's so good now. Everyone's great on the PGA Tour. Margin of error is shorter. Like an example would be, okay, John Rahm hits around about 61 to 62% of fairways. He number one on tour in fairway accuracy is Russell Henley, hits around 75% of fairways. Okay, so you're saying 15%? That is crazy. That's maybe just under 1.5 fairways around.
Yes, exactly.
So like it's you think 15%. So you're exactly right. If we were to look at the actual percentage of this number off the tee, it would be so minute that it's not drastic. It's when it starts to get into the 100s or 120s
Exactly.
where it becomes like a very, like something that we would take a really good look at and we would call that an advantage.
So, putting this mental note in our head, I don't think either of us sees any issues or glaring problems with either of these guys when it comes to shots gained. Okay, let's now go to careers and majors and top fives and majors. And this is the exact same debate that we had with Tyrrell Hatton and Tommy Fleetwood. Cantlay is Tommy Fleetwood, and Schauffele is, I'm sorry, Cantlay is Tyrrell Hatton, and Schauffele is Tommy Fleetwood. Schauffele's been there a lot of times. Has he backdoored? I would say he's backdoored less than Fleetwood has. Tyrrell Hatton and Patrick Cantlay haven't been there. Shocking to me, James, that Patrick Cantlay has one top five in majors in his entire career. When I did this stat, I was blown away that he's been that bad in major championships because to me, I don't get that same sense with him that he can't get it done, that it's a mental block. I don't have that feeling about Patrick Cantlay, but at the same time, why hasn't he been closer?
It's
Makes no
it's
sense.
a tough one. It's got to be between the ears. Cantlay, if you look, he's had 8 wins, none this season, no majors, as you said. sixth on strokes gained, total driving. I could go through all his statistics, and he is like a robot. Now, the fact that you've put up pretty much the other robot on the PGA Tour against him, like these two guys are the most boring golfers
That
that
was
you
the
are ever
point.
going to see. I mean, Schauffele's even said it. He's like, boring is good. They're both just so rock solid when it comes down to their games being so precise. It just comes between the ears. It's almost for Cantlay, it's just more experience about being in contention in the majors. And Schauffele's had that a little bit more, but it's a tough one to really grasp, especially when I put Cantlay as one of my favorites this week. I just feel like this is a course for him, but you've put his twin brother when it comes to golf games right up next to him, and this was one coming out of left field from you. I didn't see this coming, but
Yeah,
it's very hard
bec
to break down who you would choose.
and that's why I wanted to highlight it because I feel the same way as you do about Patrick Cantlay. I feel like he has every tool and he's shown he can win by being a FedEx Cup champion and winning late in the season when it matters most. Is the fact that he hasn't done it in a major a glaring issue? My mind tells me no, it's not an issue. But then I want to look at why hasn't it happened? Because I don't put him in that moniker of a guy who's going to choke when it matters most. I just don't. But I look at the stat and it just glares at me like, how do I pick Patrick Cantlay when I know he's done nothing in majors? I mean, I'm sure you have the same struggle.
Yeah, look, it's. I feel like he's one of those players, and we can lean on this crutch a little bit, but that once he gets one, he might rattle off a couple more. Um, the better comp here would probably be Tony Finau, a guy that you would believe that would have done a lot better in majors and just hasn't, especially with his past, you know, kind of few months. I think Finau's won 4 times in the last 12 months or 3 times in the last 12 months. So it's a difficult one here. Schauffele also looking for better form in the majors of late. A lot of this success has come over the past few years, but I think that it's a it's baffling. I think it's straight between the ears. I think he comes into this event with a bit more of a chip on his shoulder, knowing he hasn't won this season, and then especially with a lot of the social media heat that he's been getting with slow play. He's kind of been created a little bit as a villain, even though he's very tough to watch. He's very deliberate, but I like the way he's kind of addressed it and said that's what I do, and that's what I'm going to continue to do, unless I get fined or I'm told otherwise. So I don't know. I think he's got that kind of chip on his shoulder coming in this week, where maybe with this style of golf course, he might be able to take advantage, especially where he is. If we were to crunch the numbers and look at his strokes gained.
So let's reset here before I go to the final stat. The final stat's going to be 2023, how they're doing this season. Let me go back to the beginning. We basically call Schauffele and Cantlay even when it comes to shot gain. You agree? They're basically even. No need to nitpick about who's doing better at what. You agree?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Next one is top fives and majors. We're giving Schauffele that edge, but we're not sure if we want to count out Cantlay. But right now, Schauffele has the edge, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Now let's go to the final category 2023 season results. Cantlay's been okay, but Schauffele's clearly been better. Same amount of top threes. Schauffele has one more top five. He has two more top tens. He has not missed a cut this year. Cantlay's only missed one. Give him a freebie. Here's what I'm trying to highlight. I like Patrick Cantlay this week more than Xander Schauffele. But the stats are telling us to pick Xander Schauffele over Patrick Cantlay because he's got the edge on 2 out of 3 of these categories, including results in 2023.
Yeah, I think you've convinced me.
I don't want to convince you because I like Cantlay.
Yeah, it's once again you. I mean, if you're going to give the edge to someone, you'd give it to Schauffele. Now, based on for me, it's based on maybe what's happening between the years with Cantlay a little bit more in the spotlight of late. He's been in a couple more last final groups. You know, we talked about the Masters. We RBC, he was right there. It's it's a tough one. You would really have to. I'm sure we've got a lot of guys out there and girls with different models on different. It's almost how do you want to skew it, but you've done a great job in doing that right now. Where now I didn't see what Shoffley. What is he paying this week? I know you've got Cantlay at around about 20 to 1, but you know
Let me
Shoffley.
look. I mean, Shaw
I bet you.
Cantlay's odds are better than Schauffele's. I know that for sure. So, and the final thing that I'm going to look it up here. The final thing I
Yeah,
wanted
no
to
worries.
make a point about all this was I got it here. Uh, yeah, Cantlay was plus 2,000. I know that 20 to 1, and
Yeah.
Schauffele's right behind him, 22 to 1, plus
Oh,
2,200.
so
Yeah,
okay, so you've sold me there. You've presented a great case, and I know you like Cantlay, but I think you've sold yourself with
I've
a
sold you.
late
So,
change
are
up
you
here.
really changing your pick to Schauffele?
I'm back on Shoffley because of the odds. I want the better value,
Right,
and
well, you're getting a little bit better. Yeah.
you you know that's a little extra. It's a very difficult one, more so in a head-to-head matchup. I mean, if you're going to if you look at the group betting, and you might get two of these guys against each other, you've put a really solid case out there. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to rethink, but it's a very difficult one, especially when you put, as I said, the two robots up against each other.
Let me put it this way, then we can move on to something else because I think we can change the context of how we look at this. I did all these stats for a reason because those are all the big ones that you want to look at and say, okay, here's the proof of why this guy can do that. I think what we do internally in our minds is we make assumptions. My assumption has been that Patrick Cantlay is eventually going to figure this out. Patrick Cantlay is eventually going to be a major champion. So many good things go for him, not for that not to happen. So in my mind, it says Patrick Cantlay is going to get this done. Okay, that's why I pick him. But the stats and the results and the trends tell me I'm wrong. So which one do you choose? Do you choose your gut on what you think is eventually going to happen? Or do you choose what history tells you and what the actual data tells you? Because it sounds like you and I are on the same page there. And then when we look at the data and look at the trends, we change our mind and say, no, it's not Cantlay, it's Schauffele.
I tell you what, the defining factor and the edge that would give it to me is if Cantlay is teeing off in the afternoon and
Okay.
Shoffley is teeing off in the morning. Now, if they're both on the same side of the draw, I'm going to go with Shoffley. I just have to go with the stats and the proven past, and also Shoffley's a guy that's looking to get a major. So it's one of those deals. Like I think you've got to look down at what are the split and the maybe flip of the coin for who you're going to choose out of these two guys, which you've created a very very good case for. And I'd be looking down to the defining factors of maybe some course history there and the weather conditions and what tee times.
Let me put it this way, because I do want to move on, but I want to get your thoughts on this for my own internal selfish reasons. I'm in a major golf bet where you pick four guys per major and you can only use them once. I want to save Schauffele for the US Open. I mean, is it foolish not to pick him here now? I'm inadvertently prepping him up to you and convincing you to pick him when I'm not even trying to do that. Uh, do I save Schauffele for the U.S. Open or do I pick him here? I mean, I don't know now.
Well, you've got two good picks here for either or. I mean,
Yeah.
if you use Shoffley here and save Cantlay for the US Open, it's still going to be a great pick, considering that, LA Country Club's another brutal test. You've got two guys that don't make many mistakes and don't miss many fairways and greens, and both continuously pump out top 10. So I think there's another. You've almost convinced yourself there. It's almost like you said you already had him chosen for the US Open
Yeah.
before this. You're just trying to get me to convince you to take him this week.
They're trying to blame you for when it doesn't go well. That's just what you do, right? Okay. Are you regretting this now? Best bets for this week. The first one on your board was Patrick Cantlay. Uh, Not a good value. He's like fourth best odds. at plus 1,800. It might be fifth best odds. And here's what I was telling you, James. Shots gained total, he's sixth. Shots gained off the tee, he's third. I don't think those are the two categories to look at. I just don't. I love his putting. I just think there's nothing average about this. There's nothing average about the PGA Championship and the way that this course is going. That all those averages put him at shots gained total awesome. But I just don't see that being the number to look at because there's nothing normal about this week.
Yeah, my bets. Obviously, I'm picking Rahm to win the tournament, even though at some sports books you're seeing that Scheffler is the slight favorite. But
Mm.
I'm picking Rahm. He's my guy. But there's just look, I can't bet here in Texas, unfortunately. So I have to do it kind of in my mind on my fake piece of paper, and sometimes my wife will choose a couple players, and we'll battle it out that way for maybe a couple beers or a happy hour here and there.
And she probably
But
beats you
it's
more than you beat her, right?
yeah, she loves she did. She beat me in our last major pool where we had it for the Masters, and she knows a little about golf, but it comes down to colours and the way their name sounds and who she's seen win tournaments in the past. But I think Rahm's going to win. I think the heater he's on, 4 wins this year. He just looked impressive at the Masters. So he's my best bet. These are my value bets. Not only these four
Yes.
guys, but the guys that are going to come down that we're going to choose. If I was going to gamble and I'm going to select some guys, I want to get a little juice. I want to feel kind of a little nervous, but I also want to get a little bit of return on my money. So Cantlay, I feel like 18 to 1 is it's too good for him. Obviously, with Schauffele, yeah, I might have switched this one out, but you've got me. I'm stuck. I've got to go with my choice now, my gut instinct,
Yeah.
and choose Cantlay based on his strokes gained statistics. I think he's perfect. It's once again, he hits it long and straight. He's a solid putter, small greens. So you're going to get a lot of better proximity to the hole. He hits 70% of greens in regulation. So you got a guy that hits it not only long and straight, he also converts with 70% of greens in regulation. So his scoring average is third. You got to have a low scoring average. So his scoring average is better than him as his world ranking. He's fourth in the world. The only problems I would say with Cantlay is he's not good on par threes, and the par
They're long.
threes they're very long.
Yeah.
There's a couple beasts of 230 yards, so and he's not good out of the sand. And we talked about if you're missing greens here, the bunkers
They've all
they're
been redone.
legit. They're redone. They're legit. They're being likened to the old course, St Andrews, where some from 200 yards are going to be going out sideways, but around the green, you're not. You're looking up to the pin position. You can't see the base of the pin. There's a lot of edges of the greens where the ball won't sit. It'll roll either back into the face of the bunker, which is nearly impossible. You're going to pull a hamstring trying to play that shot, or you're going to go off the other side, or it come back to your feet. So it's look, there's a couple. He's great from approach from 200 yards. So he's 34th on the PGA Tour from 200 yards. I said before, 55% of the shots hit from the fairway here the numbers have been crunched. It's around about from 175 to 200 yards,
Oh, hold
55%
on.
of the time.
So why is he bad on par threes then?
I'd assume
Yeah. I mean,
because
I'm not
most
trying to
par threes
catch you
are
here.
under.
I'm curious. Like, why is he bad on par threes if he's so good from 175 to 200? Like, I don't get it.
Well, we're talking probably most par threes are probably going to measure under 175 yards, and he just obviously his numbers aren't as good as the rest of the tour. It's maybe being a little bit more aggressive. He's a bit more consistent from long range. He's a good long iron player, but once again, he hits 70% of greens in regulation, so that is an outlier. But it's I'd rather have him be 34th on the tour from approach to the green and hit 70% of. Look, the numbers are skewed. Obviously, he doesn't hit 70% of greens in regulation from 175 to 200. But this is one of the only courses where you have those shots over and over. It's how the game is now with the length these guys are hitting it. It's a wedge game. These guys barely grab 4 or 5 iron out of the bag. It's mostly 6 iron and down or 7 iron and down. So I think there's a couple statistics there. Being a good putter in big moments, great one putt percentage. It's yeah, these are all the kind of factors that I'm trying to push to get him in front of Xander Schauffele, like you said before.
I apologize for showing the stuff that is almost maybe convinced both of us. I don't know if it's convinced me yet. I'll probably make the wrong pick either way. Let's go to Jason Day because statistically, James, he's the third best player on tour this year statistically. Behind the two guys you know they are, Rahm and Scheffler. Jason Day's been the third best golfer on tour this year. Question is, his odds have gone way down in terms of value because he won last week. That's not good. What do you like about him, though? Just the fact that everything around his game is great right now? Because my one concern is you play the odds, and the odds of winning back to back weeks, it just doesn't happen. It doesn't.
It's yes, you play the odds. Look, I'm biased. You got a fellow Australian
I
here,
wonder why.
two Australians in my top four picks, so there might be a little bit of an emotional winning interest there from my point of view. He's hot. He's been playing great lately. I know he won the Byron Nelson last week. He's a past PGA Championship winner, 2015. He's just an amazing wedge player and putter. So when he gets in trouble, he finds his way out of it very well. And he's just improved his swing to the point where not only is he still hitting it a long way, but to take off a little pressure off his back and to be better under pressure with the driver. He said he wanted to be able to, make sure he could get drives in the fairway. So he's shallowed out his swing. He's healthy. It's taken all the pressure off his back. He used to flip it a lot at the bottom. He used to be very powerful, but now he's become very consistent off the tee. And this kind of took shape at the start of last year. It's been a long time coming, but he said himself he's finally not only feeling like he's got the eye of the tiger back, but he feels like when he's in contention, his old self, where he went on that run where he was winning everything, he was one of the best players and the best player in the world. So it's not only that does he have the consistency with the swing under pressure. Now he's got a win to prove it, just to kind of solidify that. He's also feeling very confident under pressure, and just the way he can recover out of trouble, which he might need this week. As I said, if you're missing the fairway at Oak Hill or you're putting it in those bunkers, there's going to be a lot of recovery shots needed. We can talk about find fairways as much as you can. There's a lot of stats that haven't been thrown out there during, the breakdown of the odds this week of how good guys are at scrambling from around the greens, from that 60 to 70-yard mark of trying to get up and down for par. Like, it's not only, you're not never going to be doing that for birdie out here at Oak Hill because of the length of the course, but it's just keeping momentum of rounds going and not falling too far behind, especially with the amount of bogeys that are going to be made. So a guy that can not only is feeling it, he's healthy, he's feeling it, he's confident, he's hitting it great off the tee, has a fantastic wedge game, because he's going to need it to recover, and just one of the best putters on tour. So it's just a combination of current form, past form, knowing how to win this event, knowing how to win majors, feeling healthy, and that he's Australian also. It's I'm jumping on all over those.
You are convincing me to really like Jason Day. I can't pick him in my big pool because the majors pool that I'm in, the players is part of it too. I picked him at the players and he won some decent money there. And Jason Day's the kind of guy that everybody's rooting for. You won't find many guys on tour that will have people pulling for them more than Jason Day. Now, let's get to the fascinating stuff. What do you do with the live golfers? Because Brooks Koepka, well, really, and Phil Mickelson and Patrick Reed threw all of this on its face at the Masters because let's throw out Phil because Phil at the Masters, it just happens for him. It clicked like it did at the PGA 2 years ago. I think we throw out Phil because that's a misnomer. And I think that's an outlier of why he did well at the Masters, that course in specific. But you look at how Kepka did. You look at how Reed did, okay? Dustin Johnson didn't really do well at the Masters. I picked him there. He didn't do very well. But he won this last week. And Cam Smith is getting healthy. He mentioned he had those health issues, and now he's been getting better this year. It's a crapshoot, James. I hate it. It sucks. I hate the fact that we have very little metrics to gauge how these guys are doing. We have no clue how tough the courses are they're playing, no clue how wide open they are. 3 rounds instead of four. So many different factors. How good is the field? You can make the argument either way. I hate having to make these picks, but Cam Smith, I something about it makes a lot of sense to me this week.
Well, Cam Smith, something about him in every major makes sense. It's 100% how he feels about his game. I talked to his caddy a couple of years ago, and it's the inner confidence that he has. He's not outwardly confident. He's not going to tell you that he's going to, he thinks he's the best player in the world, but he
That's
believes
not
it.
his. That's not his
Um,
style.
it's not his mo. But his caddy actually said to him, he's like, "When you're on, can anyone beat you?" And he's like, "No." And he's not the type of guy to lie to himself or lie to anyone else. And he's like, "No, I'm far and away better than anyone in the world when I'm playing well." And look, that was a while back. That was before he joined Live, but I love the fact that he's a guy that's going to be coming in here with a chip on his shoulder, and he's trending in the right direction. He played well in Australia. He got his mojo back, starting to feel healthy. Lost in a playoff to Dustin Johnson last week. Looked fantastic. He was great off the tee last week. I didn't watch a lot of Live, but it just seeing how he looked with his balance, his tempo, how far he was hitting it. As much as you said, we can't really gauge the statistical advantage that he has. We just know that he's one of the best putters that has ever lived. I mean, he owns the scoring record. Well, he's tied to the scoring record for lowest putts in 18 holes.
Yeah.
So we know he knows how to make big putts at big moments. We saw it at the Open Championship last year. And once again, I'm biased. It's Cam Smith, but the glaring factor here is it's Cam Smith in a major at 30-1. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just how
yeah,
could you not
yeah,
whack a lazy $10 on it? Like
and
it's just that's
and 8 months ago that would have been 20-1, maybe even less. So that's an excellent point. What do you like about Dustin Johnson? I mean, sell me here because I need to be sold.
okay. The one thing I loved about Dustin Johnson is not only that he won last week, it was the way he talked about his win. He's a guy that's very quiet, very ho hum, never up or down. But he was frustrated he didn't win outright. He talked about his round, how he got a little lucky, and he said he left a couple shots out there. And he said it's the best he's been hitting it in a long time. Now, Dustin Johnson doesn't say that sort of stuff. He
No,
doesn't
no,
admit to the public, hey, I'm flushing it. I'm going to come out here and tear it up. But I think it slipped out. But he goes, I'm playing some of the best golf I ever have. I'm happy to win here this week. He looked good with the putter under pressure. It's once again, we can't really rely on a lot of statistics from the live guys, but for me, I had to put a couple in. I have to bet on a couple live guys. And Brooks is another great option, especially like you said with what he did at the Masters. But I'm just going purely on current form and course setup. I mean, this place is perfect for Dustin Johnson. Very for me personally, it's a little similar to Oakmont, the way that how difficult it plays, how fast the greens are, how the fairways kind of they're the fourth tightest as far on this tournament, this course, Oak Hill. It's the smalling landing areas combined on the PGA Tour, if you include greens and fairways. So the consistency from Dustin Johnson, a guy that hits it a long way, he's one, if not one of the best drivers in the game when it comes to accuracy and distance. Confidence that he just plays well at tough big boy golf courses. And he's feeling good with the putter under pressure, coming off a win. And when he says that he's hitting it some of the best he has in a long time, I just got to pick him, especially at 20-1. It's a no brainer for me.
yeah, good point. All right, so prop bet time. If those are the winners that you could see being an outright winner for way bigger numbers, obviously. Prop bet time. I like Sam Burns too. I don't think Sam Burns is in the place that he wants to be, that he certainly was at last year, but I think he's shown glimpses of it. And I think this is the kind of course, these tougher courses that are firm and fast, that he's done well at on the regular PGA Tour events. 450 for top 10. I don't know who around Sam Burns at 450 top 10 I feel more comfortable with. Anywhere from the plus 500 to plus 300 odds. I think Sam Burns is about as comfortable as I feel about getting a top 10.
Exactly. And look, if you were to look at his strokes against statistics this year, it's not great for Sam Burns. But this is kind of the time of the year that he started to feel well. He won Colonial. I know it's a totally different event, totally different course, but I'm just purely look. I'm not going to say a lot about these guys, but Burns, it's just the caliber of player, especially paying 55 to 1 to win the tournament, but a top 10, 450, like it's insane. It's just the name in the position that I'm prepared to put some money on, and he's look. I've seen when he's been on this season, he's looked great. He looks comfortable. So for me, it's if Burns can get off to a good start this week, I think he's dangerous, but it's all about that first round for him. Visually feeling comfortable at this golf course with getting off to a good start, and then it's just the number and the player of where he is in that position.
So let me go through his shots gained for you because we talked all about 60th, 70th, 80th, and shots gained is not much different from fifth. The only place where Sam Burns is losing shots to the field is approaching the green. He's 168th approaching the green on the approach shots. He's losing almost half a shot to the field, but he's gaining almost a full shot on the field and putting,
Putting,
and
yep.
he's off the tee gaining almost half a shot on the field. So if he can hit his irons well, but you're mentioning 200 yards, 175 yards in, that's the one concern. And you say if he can figure a few things out, if he can hit the irons well, Sam Burns top 10 seems awesome to me. Now, Adam Scott in the top 10. I picked Adam Scott in my top 10 last week at Byron Nelson, got me an easy plus 310. I thought that was a no brainer just because that was his first non designated event since January. He's played all top fields and he's been doing well. And Adam Scott's the kind of guy who, when he starts playing well, he keeps playing well. That's why I like Adam Scott top 10 for plus 650. Are you kidding me?
And look, I
Yeah.
know it's another Australian. I get it. You know, very very attractive man. One of the best swings on the PGA Tour. Dress sense, not so attractive, but look,
Getting better at
I
that.
got some inside information. I went and walked around the Byron Nelson a couple of rounds last week, and I followed Adam Scott, and he looked really good. If anything, he could have done. He should have done better than top. T8. I think he finished.
Yeah, he
So
struggled on the weekend.
yeah, and I watched him, but it wasn't a
Saturday.
struggle. It was just kind of, it's a golf course. TPC Craig Ranch is an absolute birdie fest. So struggling on the weekend means you didn't make 7 or 8 birdies each round, so. But then I watched him on the round on Sunday after he'd finished, and no, sorry, it was this was Saturday after he'd finished, and it was just a stripe show. He was trying to figure out some kinks, but he didn't really need to do much because it looked so great. I sat there for about 30 to 35 minutes. And look, it's another again. It's a player. It's current form. It's the number. Also, he played well here when it was in 2013. Now I know the redesigned a totally different golf course, but still, the sight lines, the looks, it just feels the same. And he played well at Quail Hollow a couple of weeks ago, which is another brutal, tough golf course. He
Yeah.
finished tied for fifth out there. So you put that all together, you put Adam Scott, the quality of player, how well he looks like. I feel like he's putting at the best he's ever had. Everyone knows that. We've all been talking about it. And then coming off, coming back to a position where he's played well before, just wrap that all up into this number. It's once again, it's hard to pass up. So I think top 10 is great value here at 650.
Couple of top 20s, Siwoo Kim and Gary Woodland. What do you like about both those? Because the odds aren't great, but it's top 20. It's not like they have to play
The,
awesome. They got to play decent.
Exactly. I mean, look, it's these are just the long shots. It's these are the fun bets. You know, put a lazy $5 on it, or them to win the tournament, but also just at this top 20, 30 to 1 I mean, sorry, top 23 to 1 for Siwoo, and just over $4 for Gary Woodland. Gary Woodland, and Siwoo. Look, Siwoo's a winner this year. He's a guy that won the
Mm.
Sony Open, so he knows how to do it. And he's made 16 of 18 cuts. So this is one of those fun bets for me where it's like, okay, he's most likely going to be there on the weekend. My money's still live. So it's just one of those bets that you've got a quality player that's won on the PGA Tour, very consistent player, most likely will make the weekend. So my cash is still valid. And I think he's just a quality player, and that number at top 20, I think it's very nice cash. And then Woodland plays well at big boy golf courses.
Sneaky good.
Just look, if this season he's had two top tens. He's 10th in approach, which we couldn't have, beat that dead horse as much as we have for this. But he's 10th in approach. Look, putting's not good. He's 196 in putting.
Mm.
I'm just
Yeah.
hoping the small greens might help him be a little closer to the hole.
Okay. It's glaring though.
Uh, but total driving 12, greens in regulation 29th, but approach over 200 yards third. Now,
Yes.
is that
Ding, ding,
because
ding.
exactly? And so he had a T14th at Quail Hollow, another tough golf course. Won the US Open at Pebble when it was playing very, very difficult. He just plays well at tough golf courses. He's a good long iron player. He feels at home at these kind of venues. And look, it's a super long shot. I know Gary, he's a confident guy. If he gets around, contention, he kind of sticks there. He knows how to compete. He rarely fades away. So it's all about for him and most of these guys in this kind of number region. If they get off to a good start, if they get a good feel, who knows? And once again, it's just a good fun bet to have at the back of the back of the odds.
And again, we're not asking him to shoot 3 rounds in the 60s. We're asking him to get a top 20. And that is easily something Gary Woodley can do with his long game that you mentioned. James, you know I can't have a show with you without doing something fun at the end. So I want you to do this before we go. Pick 3 of these to be true at the PGA Championship. I know you're going to pick Rahm here because you think he's going to be your winner. So you're not going to pick Rahm here. I'm sorry. John Rahm finishes outside the top 10. Jordan Spieth misses the cut with his injury. Brooks Koepka outside the top 10. Scotty Scheffler has a lead at some point during this event. No live players in the top 3, not like the Masters. Or we have a first time major winner. Pick 3 of these 6 to be true at the PGA Championship.
Oh, this is very, very good. Well
You're not
done.
going
Okay, I'll
around.
go. Okay, not going Ram. Scheffler is going to be my first one to have a lead at one time.
Yeah. Tied for the lead, too. So that's,
Okay, cool. Because he could
yeah.
birdie the first 2 holes and be tied for the lead. So that's just if I was, you never know. But that's an easy one. Oh, this is so difficult. Okay, I'll go with uh,
Speed.
Kepka.
Okay, I agree. I don't think
Okay,
Kepka is the kind of pick that he seemed like he was at the Masters. I like him for the US Open. They're saying the US Open is going to be a little bit more wide open. Have you heard that?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I love him there. I'm not sure I like him on back-to-back majors like he did at the Masters because the Masters suits him. I mean, it does. He doesn't have to hit the ball so straight. You going outside
So
top 10 for Kepka?
I'm going Kepka
Okay.
outside the top 10. Um, and then this is so difficult because Ram is getting inside. It's down to
No
let's
live
go.
players in the top 3.
It's between that and Spieth misses a cut. It's so the Spieth one's so difficult because we don't know, we
Mhm.
have no clue how the
Exactly.
severity of the injury.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Spieth the miscut.
Yeah.
Look, he didn't play last week. It's one of those it's an unknown. Very close to no live players in the top three, but I think we're going to get one guy in the top three. So yeah, that's final done. I know the Koepka outside the top 10, he's probably going to be the guy that finished inside the top three to just crumble this kind of statistic for me. But yeah, they're my three. Scheffler will have the lead at one time. Spieth's going to miss the cut, and then there's going to be no first-time major winner. No, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Spieth, Koepka, and Scheffler. I got you. You say there won't be a first time major winner, and before we go, I want to talk about that because I've always had the feeling that the PGA Championship is the event where guys get their first major, but it actually isn't. It's third out of the four. If you go back to 2010, James, 7 first time major winners of the PGA, and the only one that has less was the Open Championship. There's 6. The Masters has had 9 first time winners since 2010. The US Open had 12 first time winners since 2010. PGA has 7 and the Open has 6. I always had this thought that the PGA was where guys get it done, but I'm assuming the reason why you don't feel that way is because just the toughness of the golf course and how many great major winners there are in golf nowadays.
And once again, I think I listened to a podcast before with Shane Bacon, and he was talking about is the PGA Championship one of the most entertaining majors, and
you don't realize
you don't, and it's credit to the PGA of America, the courses they pick. I mean, look at I'll just go through the last 7 winners. All right,
yeah.
I mean, let's go. So you had Duffner, last 10 winners: Duffner, McIlroy, Day, Jimmy Walker, a little bit of an outlier there, but he was in fine form. Justin Thomas, Koepka 2 years in a row, Morikawa, Mickelson, and then Thomas again. That's just quality play. This often the separation of the lead is 1 or 2 shots every time. So it just breeds this not only quality play from the best in the world, but because of the venues. I think credit to the venues. It almost feels like you could pick venues between US Open and PGA Championships and just kind of switch them at any point. And I think that's the cream always rises to the top, and that's what I like to see. I don't like to see separation of scores, but I love to see separation of field from the best players in the world to the guys that shouldn't be winning major championships. So I think this event really brings that out the most.
You know what, man? What we just did, we both just proved ourselves wrong of why Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay are not going to win the PGA Championship because it's not going to be a first-time winner. James, maybe we're both just really bad at this and should give it up one day.
Well, at least we talked ourselves into the right decision. There we go.
All right, man. Thanks for being with us on Find the Fairway Live.
Thanks, Chris. It's always a pleasure. I had a ton of fun.
See you next time. All righty.